Where's Rachel coming? Alright, I'll only be a second doing this. Alright, okay, great. Now, make that silent. Okie doke. Right, okay, great, wonderful. Alright, lovely. So let's just start off with our tefillah, as usual. Alright, and I'd like to make the tefillah for Ilui Neshama of Elena Bat Alexandra, and also for Refuah Shalema for Raphael Ben Hayarosa. Oh, 1 minute, I think I forgot to share my screen. So let me do that. There we go. Right, here we go, good. ריבון עולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב רחמן וסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה בשתחוויה שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומה חיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה. על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ועל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לביניך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך כרך ניחוח. ותרציל עלינו אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודיך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם, וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבל נקשר בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיני והביטה נפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לרצון ימי פי, ויגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. Can you rtzon? Okay, great. So we're going to read an amazing article, which is from Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, and it's about what is the Mabul, what actually is the flood of water, okay, that happened, for which Noah needed to go into the ark. What actually is that in our inner work? Because we know the way of the Rav Ashlag, and based on the Zohar, which is that the events which take place in the history of the people of the Torah, whatever, of the Tanakh, is not historical events. I mean, there are also historical events. I'm not denying that there was a flood or Noah existed or anything like that. But they are also, and the way for us to learn from it, is they're also current ways in which we relate to God. Because a human being is an entire world. So everything that happens in the world outside is also happening within ourselves. And therefore, the way Rabbi Ashlag relates to the events of the Torah is more in line, for example, with the way Gestalt therapy works in dreams, okay? And if anybody's done a little bit of dream work or something, they'll know that there is a type of way of looking at dreams where all the different elements in the dream are not different people. Like, for example, if you dream about your father or your mother or something, it's not your father or your mother actually in the dream. It's that representation within you, okay? So that all the different elements are actually represented within ourselves. And this is the basic way in which Rabbi Ashlag looks at all the elements of the Torah. And it's a very useful way, because it brings all the elements into the here and now. And we relate to the flood as something that affects us now, okay? And also to the ark as something which is present and available to us in our lives. So this is the way in which we're going to look at this flood of water in our inner work. Now I can't remember if I'm showing my screen. No, I'm not. So here we go. I'm going to share the material with you. Okay, so you can actually, those of you who can read Hebrew can read along with me. Okay, and I'm going to look at this article. It's written by Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag as a guide to our inner work. What is a flood of water in our service for God? In the Holy Zohar of the Parshat Noach, okay, it explains the scripture, and here am I bringing a flood of water on the earth. And this is its language. I think it was Rabbi Yossi, opened his discourse, and he said, there are the Mei Meriva, the waters of strife, which the children of Israel quarrelled with God. Do you remember when after the coming out of Egypt, all right, and they quarrelled with God, and they said the water was bitter, all right, and then they had God told Moses to put this branch of a tree in the water, and the water became sweet, all right, and he called it the Mei Meriva, the waters of strife, where the children of Israel quarrelled with God. And the Zohar asks an interesting question, and it says, and you mean to tell me that in other places the children of Israel didn't quarrel with God? I mean, we know for sure that they quarrelled every 5 minutes along the journey. When you read it in the Parshat Shavua, what was special about here? That he specifically calls it, these are the waters of strife. Which seems to refer to these waters of strife and not others. And he answers the question, but these were certainly waters of strife for sure. Oh, wait a minute. Shenatnu. Okay. Shenatnu. Where were we? I was just letting people in. Shenatnu kach ugvur lebala din litchasek. And what happened was the type of quarrel that was going on gave the power of strife to and judgment to get stronger. Mishum sheyesh mayim metukim v'yesh mayim merumim. On the other, we can see that there are different types of water. There's water which is sweet, and there's water which is bitter. What does this refer to? Sheisod hakdusha v'lu'umat dekav yamin, and there is refers to the fact that you've got holiness, and you've got the right hand line. Or on the other hand, you've got mayim slulim, you've got clear water, v'yesh mayim makorim, you've got dirty water. So sod hakdusha v'lumat shel kav small, and there's got the aspect of holiness, and you've got the left hand line. Yesh mei shalom v'yesh mei meriva, you've got water of peace, and you've got water of quarreling. Shu sod hakdusha v'lumat shel kav emtzai, and you've got the side of holiness and the middle line. Okay, now all this sounds quite like Chinese, okay? We're just first going to learn the Zohar, and then we're going to look at what Rabbi Ashlag is going to comment on it. And therefore the scripture says, Heima mei meriva, asher avu b'nei Yisrael Tashem. These are the waters of strife with which the children of Israel quarreled with God. This is the aspect of the middle line. Because they brought upon themselves the waters which they had not needed to bring. That is the aspect of the quarreling, and they were contaminated by it. And he was sanctified through them. So, like I say, this to me sounds quite complex. I don't understand it. It's got all different types of waters, holiness, not holiness, peace, bitterness, judgments. I don't wonder why these waters, why not other waters. none of this makes sense, okay? All right. So we're going to actually look and see what the Zohar, this is what Rav Ashag's now going to do, is going to take a complicated piece of Zohar and he's going to bring it down into our ordinary language. So he says we need to understand what are these three different types of water he's talking about. What are the three lines which are for these three different types of waters? What does it mean in our inner work? Okay, and for sure, the Zohar Kadosh is talking about, high spiritual levels. Okay, but what does it mean for us? What does it mean in our work? All right, and this is what he's going to discuss. First of all, we need to know what is a flood of water in our spiritual work. Because the flood itself was the destroyer. On which is said, and he destroyed all existence, going to wipe out all existence. It's known that when a person begins to work to serve God for the sake of giving, then one's body or one's will to receive oneself alone, the ego, one's selfishness, straight away maintains, what does this work mean to you? Okay? When we really want to work for the sake of giving, our ego is not prepared to do it. It rebels. And it says, why should I do this work? Okay, and you all recognize that question. It's the question of the wicked son on Leila Seder. He says, why should I do it? What's this work for you? The ego says, what's the point of not working for yourself? Surely you need to be concerned that you should enjoy your life. And lashpia, to give unconditionally, means that you don't work for yourself. What use is going to come to you from that you're putting any effort in? Do you think that the Creator is going to take pleasure from the fact that you fulfill his Torah and mitzvot? The ones which Moses, our teacher, taught. Do you think he's going to give you a reward for your work and your labor in Torah and mitzvot? These are all our inner questions. Everybody gets them. The moment we want to do something unconditionally, the ego starts to make a quarrel. It starts to say all these questions, maybe not precisely in that language, but it's going to say them. What's the point? And who's going to take notice of it? And who's going to enjoy it? And do you think you're going to get a reward for it? It's going to ask all these questions, okay? And on this, you answer, and you say, but I want to work without a reward. And the body says, what do you mean? You want to work without a reward? Hello, neged higayon. It's against our logic. Okay? Hello, ateva shebo noladnu. After all, the nature with which we were born, hu atzon lakabel hana'ah v'tanug, is the will to receive pleasure and joy. And if we are laboring, putting effort in for something, of course it's so that we should get pleasure and joy for our labor. After all, it's our nature. Okay? So all these questions which the body raises up, the body, our ego, our selfish love, our selfishness raises up, all come under the word ma. What for? Okay? Ma avodah zot lachem. What is this work meaning for you? Okay? But that's not all. Ulam yesh od tana shaled haguf mitnaged lavodat Hashem. There's another way in which our ego opposes our service for God. Bizman shadam omer laguf, when the person says to his self, to his body, to himself, Anu tzrichim la'amin b'Hashem, we need to believe in God. Shuhu ha'mashgiach, he's the one who watches over us. Hu manhig et ha'olam b'vchinat tov u'meitiv. And he conducts the world from the aspect of he is good and does good. Then the ego comes to the person and says, wait a minute. Mi Hashem asher shma b'kolo. Who is God that I should listen to his voice? This is called ta'anat paro, the what Pharaoh maintained. Remember when Moses came to Pharaoh and said, God says, let my people go. He says, Mi Hashem asher shma b'kolo. Who's God that I should listen to his voice? What does that mean? It means it's hard to believe in God. And what is the body, what is our selfishness saying at this point? It's actually saying, well, I'm capable of serving God, but only on condition that I can feel the greatness of God. All right? If I can feel, experience, recognize the greatness of God, then I can serve him. Because if he could feel in his experience the greatness of God, then he would understand that it's worthwhile to serve him. This is similar to what we see in material, in reality, physical reality. That if we know or we see that many people have determined that a certain person is great, okay? I don't know, Charles III or something, okay? Or, a president of a country or something like that. And logic determines that they all say he's a great man. Then a person is able to serve a person who's great, or maybe a great rabbi, somebody who you absolutely see the greatness in him. And of course, if we had the same feeling with respect to God, then of course we would be able to serve God. But with regard to the Creator, we don't have an automatic feeling like that. Okay? Actually, our feeling is much more that the Shekhinah is in exile. And we don't have a feeling of the greatness of God. So, since we don't have a feeling of the greatness of God, it's not so easy. How can we simply nullify our selfish love in order to serve God? So we have two questions, major questions, which the ego throws up in our way the moment we want to serve God. And what are these questions? Mi umma. Who is God that I should listen to his voice? Ma Hashem ma avodah zot lachem. And what is this service of God to you? These are the two questions which we associate with Pesach. Okay? The question of Pharaoh and the question of the wicked boy, the wicked son on Seder night. And when you join them both together, Naseh tziruf mayim, water, okay? So we've got a flood of these questions, all right? Shezeh ma shekatuv, hamabul mayim al haaretz, a flood of water on the ground. And what happens when the flood of water comes? She'alidei metu, okay? That by it, people died. Klomar, שכל בחינת רוחניות הנקראת חיים נאבדה בגלל המים הנ"ל. So if you translate that into our inner work, what does it mean? That all our aspect of spirituality, which we designate as being life, is lost because of the water. All right, this flood of water, this flood of questions which has come, which are the two questions: who is God that I should listen to his voice, and what does this service mean to you? And what happens? Then the spirit of life, of holiness, the connection with God, leaves. And we're left dead. From the idea that the wicked in their lifetimes are called dead. Why they're called dead? Because they've lost their connection with the life of all lives. So when we are flooded with these thoughts of blasphemy, of heresy, and we all get them, all right? We all get them. Whenever we try to do something which is absolutely and completely unconditional, we get one or the other or both, okay? And this is called Mei Hamabul Ba'avodah. This is the water of the flood in our service for God. Shebiglal mayim ha'elu metu ba'avodah. So it's because of this water, these questions, okay, we are dead in the work. Dead meaning we can't serve God unconditionally. Weren't able to continue in the service of God because of these objections of the what does this service mean to you, and who is God that I should listen to his voice. And this is what it says in the Holy Zohar. Amar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said, it's just a bit further on than the bit we read earlier. Re'ei et malach hamavet. See the angel of death. She'aba im mei hamabul. That he comes with the mei hamabul, with the waters of the flood. V'al ken nichnas el teva. And Noah saw the angel of death, which came with the water of the flood, and then therefore he went into the ark. Okay. Malach HaMavet is another name for the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara in the Gemara it's given lots of names. Okay, it's called the angel of death. He's called the Satan. He's called the Sitra Achra. He's called lots and lots and lots of names. Okay, so what does he saw? He saw the Yetzer Hara, the Malach HaMavet. Okay, the will to receive oneself alone. He's coming together with these questions. Okay, the waters of the flood. So what does he do? He goes into the ark. Okay. In other words, the destroyer of our life, of spirituality, of our will to do something good in the world, of our will to give unconditionally, this is the Malach HaMavet. This is the angel of death. And it's contained in these basic questions which arise whenever we try to do something unconditional, of ma and me. So the issue is Hatzalat HaTeva me'amabul bavodah. How does the ark save us from this flood in our inner work? Vukach. There is the issue of faith. Faith above rationale. Okay? We've got our rationale. Every single thing that we've spoken about now, where these questions arise from, they arise from one place only. They arise from our logic, from our way of seeing the world according to our rationale. Okay? And the way to go to bypass that, to go above that, is to go in the way of faith. So what's the way of faith? When we just have to follow along, beinaim atzumot, with closed eyes. We say, sorry, I'm not going to look at my logic, I'm not going to look at my rationale, I'm going to go into the world, just to go with faith, just to believe in the way of Torah and mitzvot, according to what the sages have taught us. That is to say, even though we've got logic, okay, and we've got maybe experience. Okay? They cannot understand what the sages say. But we have to take upon ourselves to the faith in our sages, in the same way as it's written, V'aminu b'Hashem u'Moshe avdo, and they believed in God and in Moses his servant. Because without faith, we cannot attain anything in spirituality. Why not? Because of these two questions. These two questions, mi uma, arise out of logic. All right? And we have to bypass that. We have to go above that. We have to use a different paradigm of consciousness in order to get beyond them. Okay? Because we cannot attain anything in spirituality without faith. And also because we need what's called affinity of form. All right? And faith is giving unconditionally. To go in faith means to give. When you believe, you're giving. You're giving to something, even though you can't experience and you can't feel it. So this aspect of faith, Nikreit Bechinat Bina, okay, is the aspect of the Svirah of Bina. Bina relates to the light of Chasadim, all right, which is called Bechinat Ki Chafetz Chesed. It delights in loving kindness, which means that a person's not looking to understand anything. And on everything, he simply says that it arises only from the loving kindness that God is doing with me. And even though he can't actually see this loving kindness, or he might even feel the opposite, okay? He might even feel that things are not working out for him. It might be that things are going hardly with him. He's having a hard time. Different things, maybe quarreled with somebody quarreled with him, maybe, you never know, okay? Whatever it was, things economically, a lot of people are having a hard time economically right now, okay? Maybe things aren't going so easy. Nevertheless, even though he can't see the loving kindness that God is giving with him, he believes it, all right? But he believes that the Holy Blessed One conducts his world b'hashgacha pratit, with divine providence, shel tov u'meitiv, that he of goodness and doing good. And as it says, and as we say on Rosh Hashanah, v'kol ma'aminim shu tov lakol, hatov u'meitiv l'ra'im u'latovim, and all believe that he is good to everybody. He is good and does good both to the wicked and to the good. Okay? This is simply loving kindness. Okay? So even if he can't see that God's love is simply loving kindness, nevertheless he believes it. Not looking at his logic or his experience and his rationale, but simply going above knowledge into the paradigm of belief. Even if they've got eyes, they can't see. And this is the aspect of the ark. Alright? Because who goes into the aspect of loving kindness, even though he can't see it, he can't understand it, nevertheless he's going to just go to that place of faith in God, receiving everything through faith. But there is no governance to the Sitra Achra. There is no governance to the Yetzer Hara. There's no governance to the Malach HaMavet. Okay? It cannot attack you there. Because the aspect of the Sitra Achra is the aspect of the waters of the flood. That's what we said it was. So these questions of me and Ma, of who is God that I should listen to his voice, and what does this service mean to you, these have no governance in the place of faith. They can't attack you there. because all the questions that the other side asks can only govern when they are in a place of logic or rationale. When we're going in faith, that's a domain that belongs to Kedusha, that belongs to holiness. So all our questions are only arising because of our external intelligence, all right? The external intelligence with which we handle the physical aspects of our existence, whereas our internal intelligence of the soul, okay, is not affected. And we can actually access this internal intelligence when we have merited faith, when we've come into affinity of form. And then we can see in our inner intelligence that everything that external intelligence has got no reality to it whatsoever. Okay. Anybody got any questions? You can always, just call out or anything you want to say. Okay? Just call out. ואמור, המחבל הנמצא בתוך המים של המבול ממית את האדם. And from what we've said, the destroyer, okay, the will to receive ourselves alone, the Sitra Achra, the Yetzirah, whatever you want to call it, okay, is found in this water of the flood, in these questions which attack us when we want to do work for God unconditionally, and kills a person. What does it kill mean? Doesn't mean we fall down dead physically. Kills us spiritually, not on a permanent basis, but for that moment, that connection with God is cut off. All right, Perush, Alideh Maim Shemei Mi Uma, the water, which is these two questions, through these arguments, it kills the human being, okay? It disconnects him from his inner source, it disconnects him from God, it disconnects him from his inner reality. And this is what the Zohar says. Rabbi Yossi said, Noach saw the angel of death come together with the water of the flood, therefore he went into the ark. In other words, he saw that through these arguments, he will lose his spirit of life, his connection with God. And so therefore he went into the aspect of Lamala Me'adat, not using his rationale, using his will to give, using his faith, Shi Bechinat Bina, which is given to us through the connection with the Sfira of Bina, Shi Bechinat Ki Chafetz Chesed, which is the aspect of desiring loving kindness, which means it only wants to be a giver, not to receive anything. Elu Samech B'chelko, but he's happy in his portion. Whatever God gives us to do in the work of holiness, even if it's the tiniest amount, he thinks he feels that it's fantastic. He feels thankful and he feels grateful, even if it's the tiniest amount in spirituality. To the smallest extent, you can feel something that's in the service of God, that he wants to serve God unconditionally. That already is counted as a great merit by him. So what does he do with these questions when they arise? Okay? Does he get angry? Does he get disappointed? Does he get miserable? Does he get sad? Does he get frustrated? Okay? No. He does something very interesting. He says, he gets happy. Okay? He gets happy from all these complaints that the ma and the me create in him, that he's hearing. Because now he says, I've got a definite push to go above knowledge. All right? When the question, before we have those questions arise, we don't even know there's a problem. Okay? All right? Barati Yetzirah, Barati Torah Tavlin. I created the evil inclination I created the Torah as its healing spice. But if we don't have any awareness of our evil inclination, we're not going to look for Torah. Okay? If we don't have any problem with our rationale, we're not going to look for faith. Do you see what I'm saying? So Dafka, when we become aware of these questions within us, that's the moment we can say, I hear you, I hear these questions, thank you for showing me them, and now I'm going to go through faith. Do you see what I'm saying? You can actually use these questions like a crane, one of these, construction cranes, to lift us into faith, to raise the whole thing up into faith, okay? So we can actually be happy when we notice these questions. Say, oh, right, I recognize you. You're the me, you're the ma, that's the mabul. Right, now I know I need to go into the ark, okay? Whereas if we just let it all go into a sort of a muddle within ourselves, we don't realize we need to go into the ark. And if we don't take any notice, okay, and you just think, oh, another question goes by, okay, we don't take the opportunity to go into faith. But if we notice the questions, all right, instead of getting frustrated and angry and upset, we get happy. We say, oh, okay, I recognize you guys. You're the wicked one. You're the Pharaoh. All right. Now I know I need to go Lamala Me'adat. I need to go into my ark, into my Ark of Faith. And this way he is saved from the flood of water. So now we can explain what is written in the Zohar in a different spot. And this is what it says. כי ודאי הוא שאדם צריך להסתיר עצמו שלא יתראה לפני משחית כשהוא שורה בעולם כדי שלא יסתכל בו כי כל אלו שמתראים לפניו יש לו רשות להשחיתם. Says in the Zohar, for a person needs to hide himself, that he should not be seen by the destroyer when he's wandering around the world, that he shouldn't look at him. For all those who are seen by the destroyer, he's got permission to destroy them. And in the letter Reish in the Sulam, the Zohar says, and this is the reason why the Holy Blessed One wanted to shelter Noah and to hide him from the seeing eye of the destroyer, because that he wouldn't be able for the spirit of evil to govern him, that he would not be destroyed. And so therefore he brought Noah to hide him from the waters of the flood, because the waters were pushing him into the ark. That is, when he saw the waters of the flood, he was frightened from them, and so he came into the ark. So Rabbi Baruch Shalom asked a question, and he says, what does this mean? Okay, what does it mean to say regarding the destroying angel, okay, the Yetzer Hara, the Malach HaMavet? If Noah had gone into the ark, then the angel can't see that he's in the ark, okay? And if the Holy Blessed One had told Noah he'd go into the ark, that in order so that the destroyer wouldn't be able to see him, then the destroyer would still be able to see the ark. And what does he think? That there's an empty ark without people in it? And if you're, so looking at this thing and he says, what is this talking about? Obviously it can't mean something in the physical, all right? But what it really means is like this, is what we said earlier. In our inner work, we can explain everything that's written there by saying, the destroying angel, all right, which is the will to see for ourselves alone, which is our Yetzer Hara, sees that if people are going with their rationale, he's able to quarrel with them. He's able to get them into an argument, okay? With these arguments of who is God that I should listen to his voice, and what is this service to you? And the problem is like this. Those questions don't always appear in those precise forms within us, okay? They can appear in slightly different forms and slightly different questions. Oh, supposing a friend wants you to do a favor, okay? And immediately all sorts of questions, all sorts of rationale questions come up, like, why should I bother? Or doesn't she owe me the favor? Or isn't it a bit too late at night? Or is it too early in the morning? I mean, all sorts of questions. And these are actually these two questions in disguise. All right? The two questions that we talked about are the two basic questions, but they can come in disguise. They don't have to come as precisely those questions. All right? They come in disguise, and each one of us has different disguises. All right? Why should I bother? Etc., etc. Nobody else does it. I need to look after myself. If I don't look after myself, who will be for me? Etc., etc. All right? There's lots and lots and lots of different ways in which these questions turn up in our lives. All right? But nevertheless, okay, and the moment we have a question, the moment we start getting into an argument with our Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer Hara is going to win. It's much bigger than we are. It's much stronger than we are, okay? All right? So the moment we go into the knowledge, the Yetzer Hara can see us, okay? Like, he can see us, and he's going to argue back, all right? However, when God tells Noah he should go into the ark, he's going to the aspect of Bina, all right, which is the world which is covered, okay? Alma dit kasya. The way of giving unconditionally is a paradigm of consciousness which cannot be seen by our rationale. It simply can't be seen by it because it doesn't belong to the same consciousness at all. Okay, which means it's mechuseh mifnei chitzonim. It's covered up from external arguments. And with this, the destroyer, the will to receive for ourselves alone, has got no way to argue with it. Because elu shulchim lemala me'adat, for those who walk in the way of giving unconditionally, osim hakol mitam emunat Hashem, are doing everything only for the sake of God, validei emunat tzadikim, and in the way of the sages. They were giving instruction how to walk and how to arrive at veikut b'Hashem, with clinging to God, and to merit to this inner intelligence, okay? What's our inner intelligence? Seichel HaTorah, the intelligence of the Torah. ובמקום הזה, and in this conscious place, נבחן שאין לו מהלך המשחית שום אמצעית לראות. And here, the angel of death, which is our Yetzer Hara, our will to receive for ourselves alone, has no means to see, because its seeing is limited to our vessels of receiving only, our ways, our rationale, our logic. But those people who are going only with their external intelligence, that angel, our will to receive for ourselves alone, can argue with it. Okay? Why? Because they've got a common language. What was that noise? Gosh. But that was they've got a common language. Is that okay? Can you hear okay? I heard this awful noise suddenly. And therefore the sages said, they're given כיוון שניתנה רשות למשחית, שוב אינו מבחין בין טוב לרע. The moment when is given permission, domain to the will to receive for ourselves alone, he is no longer able, a person is no longer able to discern between good and evil. So what it means by is that when we're given room to our Yetzer Hara to get involved, okay, even those people who are dealing with receiving for the sake of giving the very highest level, who are generally good, okay, the moment they allow that to happen, then they can fall down from their high position. So what do? They also Even if they're receiving for the sake of giving, which is the highest level you can get, what do? Go back to Bina. Go back to the desire of giving for the sake of giving. Because the moment when giving for the sake of giving, there is no common language with the will to receive oneself alone. There's no common language with the Yetzer Hara. Okay? And because the angel of the destroyer cannot see who is in the ark. All right? What's the ark? The ark is our domain of faith. All right? Its ability to have any recognition with us, any hold on us, is only through our vessels of receiving. Okay, there he can destroy, there he can entice, there he can accuse. But whoever's in that ark, what's the ark? The ark is the ark of Bina. The ark is the ark of the vessels of giving unconditionally. It's the ark of faith. And there the Sitra Achra cannot see him, because they don't have a common language. Okay, and then there's no reality to have a discussion with our Yetzer Hara, to understand what the Yetzer Hara is telling us against our work, because a person is simply determined to go the way of giving unconditionally, which is the way of above knowledge, above rationale, which is the way of faith. Okay. Until
Yadida,
yeah.
can you give a more concrete example of the way of faith? So how do you get into this teva? I can't quite grasp it all in order to use it in a pragmatic way, but I want to be able to use what I'm learning.
Okay, so listen, for example, supposing you know it's time for to say Shema, okay? All right. And the phone rings and the, I don't know, something else happens to distract you, and or you're feeling tired, or you haven't had your one cup of coffee, and so immediately comes into your head all sorts of things. I'll just do this, I'll just do that. I'll be able to say Shema better when I've had my coffee. All sorts of different ideas come in, which might all be logically obvious, but they are, in fact, the will to receive for self alone in disguise. Or you could simply say, yes, I hear you all, and I'm going to say Shema anyhow. And I'm not going to listen to all these arguments, and I'm just going to do the way of faith anyhow. The way of faith is what Torah and Mitzvot tells us, and the way of faith is just simply following the way of Torah that Moses told us without any arguments. It works from the simplest things to the most complicated things. Okay? If we know what the Torah and Mitzvot tells us to do, and all these different arguments come up into our brain trying to stop us doing it, we simply go say, thank you, I hear you. I'm just going to go the way of faith, which is the way of doing Torah and Mitzvot, just in the way I was taught to do it, and that's it. Without any, I'm just not going to listen to all these inner arguments. Because these inner arguments are only coming because we're trying to do the work in a pure and unconditional way as possible. They come in order to disturb our work, all right? And we then have the role of simply saying, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to do it anyhow. Does that help?
A little. Yeah.
Okay.
So is there a way not to even allow it in? I mean, not even to get the idea?
There's a way, sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said. The way not to?
Well, like, is there a way to prevent yourself from ever getting the idea to have a cup of coffee popping up?
No, not at all. That's what he said earlier. You can't stop those ideas coming. The Baal Sulam writes in another place that every single thought that comes to us, whether it's a positive thought or a negative thought, comes from God. All right? You cannot stop the thoughts. On the contrary, the thoughts are God's communication with us. So you can ask the question, how can a negative thought come from God? But in fact, they do. He sends us all the thoughts. And when a negative thought comes from God, we need to be grateful and joyous also for that, because the negative thought is there to show us where we really are. Okay, what where our real situation is. Not that we need to act on it, but then when the negative thought comes, like I want my cup of coffee, you can't stop the thought, but you simply use it as a means by which to demonstrate your faith. Okay? You raise the whole situation up and say, okay, God, I noticed the thought. Thank you for showing me. And I'm going to use that as a sort of like a motive to go into my Ark of Faith. I'm going to go into the Ark of Faith and just demonstrate to you and to me that I prefer to use my faith and say my Shema now before I drink my coffee.
Yedida,
Yeah.
could it fall into the category that every time Yedida's shiur comes about, I go, if I don't start cooking for Shabbat, I can't put time aside for Torah unless and spiritual contemplation now. I must start the preparation for Shabbat. And I overcame that this week, and I said, go into your ark, take time for the Torah, because even the preparations of Shabbat will happen. Does that fall into the category?
I'm not sure, because that's an interesting question, because you have two mitzvahs, okay? One is to prepare for Shabbat and one is to learn Torah, okay? Now, a person who's already engaged in a mitzvah is exempt from doing another mitzvah, okay? So in that situation, I would not necessarily say that the correct thing or the right thing, whatever, is to leave one to do the other. I mean, only you know how much time you have for preparing for Shabbos and whether you can spare the time to listen to the shiur or not listen to the shiur. So only you know that, all right? But the halacha is, as far as I'm aware, that if you're engaged in one mitzvah, you are exempt from doing another mitzvah. You can't do two mitzvahs at the same time, especially if they contradict each other, all right? What it's talking about here specifically is if you are or have come into your mind ideas which are specifically trying to stop you doing the Torah mitzvot, okay? And these ideas don't come in. It's interesting. They don't come in if you're doing the Torah mitzvot in order to get a prize, because there's lo lishma and there's lishma, all right? And the first, when we first start doing Torah mitzvot, we all have mixed motives. We all of us, okay? So when we're trying to do Torah mitzvot because we believe we're going to get a reward for it, either in this world or in the next world, then these questions don't arise. Because on the contrary, the ego is quite happy to cooperate. It's going to get a reward after all. So it's quite happy to cooperate, and so it doesn't make a fuss. It's when we're trying to do something which is really unconditional, really, giving for the sake of giving, really, really in faith, really unconditional, then that's when the ego starts making a fuss. And it will, and the basic two questions are: what is, who is God that I should listen to his voice? In other words, does God really care if I do the mitzvah or doesn't? Maybe, it's basically questioning the reality of the greatness of God and saying, well, if I can't feel the greatness of God, why should I do it? Okay? And the other one is, maybe this work isn't that important anyhow. Okay? And these questions will come up in lots of different ways, in different disguises. Okay? Not necessarily, like I said, in those particular forms. They'll come up in the different disguises. But when you're involved in doing one mitzvah as opposed to another mitzvah, I don't know. I don't think that's really, necessarily. It is you, but it's nice to have you very much. Okay. All right. Now then, here's a nice sort of complicated piece, which, what are we doing? Oh, we've got 2 more minutes. No, I don't want to go into any more complications, quite honestly. Oh yeah, there was one bit here which was, yeah, he goes on to talk about there is an aspect in which, you know, we agree like to serve God for the sake of giving, providing we can feel the greatness of God. And he says, no, that's not real faith. Real faith really means going with when we can't feel the greatness of God, or at least we might be able to, but it's not a condition. Okay? It's not a condition. Whether we can feel the greatness of God or we can't feel the greatness of God, that's not a condition for going for doing the work and letting go of these questions and simply going into the Ark of Faith. Because when we're going into the Ark of Faith, why is faith called an ark? Which is what also Tsippy was asking. Why is faith called an ark? Because it shelters us. The moment we're in the domain, the mental, emotional domain of faith, the evil inclination cannot get at us there, because we're in a totally different paradigm of consciousness. The moment we've decided we're going to say Shema, we're going to say Amida, we're in a different paradigm of consciousness, and the evil inclination can't get to us. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I certainly notice this in myself. That before I start davening, I have a tremendous fight with myself. All the questions of me and ma and everything you can, and all the gamut in between all come up. Okay, but once I'm in there, once I'm davening, it's gone. Once I'm in the realm of davening, all the questions have gone. They've gone. It's the moment you're in the Ark of Faith, all that is left behind. Okay. So this is what he says. He says that the evil inclination is up to the doorway of the ark, but not inside the ark. Once you're in the paradigm of faith, once you're in the work, the evil inclination can't get at you there, which is really nice. So this is when the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, the negative thoughts grab us, catch us, go into the Ark of Faith. Go into the paradigm of faith, into the paradigm of above knowledge, not relying on our knowledge, but relying on the faith in our sages and the faith in the Torah and the faith in God. And that takes us out of the inner arguments completely, cannot attack us there. Okay, and it really becomes an ark against the negative thoughts and questions that come up in our service of God. Okay, all right then. Right, well, we never got to look at those 3 lines with which we started from the Zohar, but that'll have to wait for another year, I think. And then we come round to Noah again next year. We'll come to the 3 lines in another time. All right, they come up in many, many, many different ways. There we go. Wonderful. Gosh, the hour went past very, very quickly. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.
Very much. Thank you.
Yay, wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. It certainly gives us food for thought. Lovely. Okay, everybody.
Thank you
Have a
very much,
lovely.
Indira.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you for
Indira.
joining. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
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 Bye.
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 Have a lovely Shabbat, everyone, and Chodesh Tov.
Thank you. Thank you. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Bye then.
Thank you.
Yedida,
Yeah.
I invited in Rivka, who's on, as a new participant.
Oh, please. Lovely.
And I figured if I invite someone, I must get on myself. I have to stop my conflict of 1 hour less does not mean anything. It only gives more strength to keep on going.
Oh, that's
So,
lovely. That's really lovely. Wonderful. Yeah, please. And whoever's come, you're welcome to come next time and enjoy and be with us. It's a pleasure. It's really a pleasure.
I read an article once